Hello Internet, Dusty Nomad here. I am just on my way home from a short training walk in preparation for my next adventure. It's been 3 months to the day since I got back from my last adventure down to South America. Since I got home, I've been doing a lot of good stuff. I got here just at the tail end of winter, so I was able to get 3 days of skiing in, played a couple of games of hockey, cross-country skiing, went snowshoeing for a day. And then once the trails dried up, I started riding my dirt bike and got some trail riding in, did a bit of dual sporting, did chores around the house, got everything ready for the summer. But now I'm ready for my next adventure. So you're wondering, well, what would that be? What would the next adventure be? I'll let you know in a minute here, but I'm going to show you what it's not going to include. My next adventure is not going to include any of these. As a matter of fact, I won't be riding at all on the next adventure, except for maybe 1 day of touring on an electric bike in Porto. So what is it going to include? Well, it's going to include a backpack and a pair of shoes. What is it I'm doing, you're going to say? Well, I'm going to go for a walk. And the walk is going to be along the coast of Portugal, from Porto to Santiago. About 280 kilometers. It's what they call a Camino. The Camino de Santiago. This is not my first Camino. I did one about 10 years ago where I went from Saint Jean Porto to Santiago. It was a 500 or an 800 kilometer Camino. That one took me 32 days. This is only going to take me about 12 to 14 days. It's going to be a great adventure. But instead of being on a bike, I'm going to be walking. Going to be walking about 20 to 25 kilometers per day. I'm going to be carrying all my gear, but I'm not going to be camping, so the pack is not going to be that heavy. There's not going to be any tent or any cooking utensils or anything like that. All I'm going to be carrying is the clothes that I need to wear, a bit of electronic gear for taking videos, and my toiletries. That's it. Not even taking a rain jacket. It doesn't rain this time of year in Porto, as far as I've heard, so no use overpacking. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. What is the Camino? Well, the Camino is a pilgrimage. The end of the pilgrimage is in Santiago, hence Camino to Santiago. Camino to Santiago means the walk to Santiago, the road to Santiago, the path to Santiago. However you get there is up to you. So where it ends is Santiago, but where it starts is not quite so easy to answer, as there are many caminos, many routes to get there. There's actually 271 routes to get to Santiago, which is in the northwestern part of Spain here. But the routes start all over Europe. They start in Greece, they start in Belgrade, Vienna, Prague, Germany, France, England, and there are many routes that start in Spain and work their way up to Santiago. So it's not one thing, it's many routes. There's a whole spider web, a whole network of trails that cross Europe and end up, most of the trails, the Camino trails, converge on Saint Jean Pied-de-Port there, and then work their way across the northern part of Spain over to Santiago. That's the way the majority of the people get there. About 80% of the people walk the Camino Frances, which goes through the northern part of Spain. Now, 10 years ago, I did the Way of St. James, which starts in Porto here, and then worked its way across the northern part of Spain for 790 kilometers to Santiago, which is here. But on this Camino, starting in Porto, we're going to walk up the coast and work our way all the way up the coast till about here, and then go inland over to Santiago there, and that's where we'll finish our Camino here. We are going to walk along the coast, along boardwalks, along highways, through cities, through little villages, through wilderness areas, eat in bistros, eat breakfast at little coffee shops along the way, stop in bars and have wine and beer. We're going to stay in albergues every night, or hotels, depending. Now the question is, why? Why does somebody walk the Camino? And for everybody that walks the Camino, that's a very personal choice. For us, or for myself in particular, I don't have a strong spiritual reason for walking it. I just like the adventure. I like walking along the paths and seeing the history of the areas and taking our time. Walking is the best way to see a country. When you ride a bike, you're going along at 60, 80, 100 kilometers an hour. You really don't have time to do a lot of looking. All you see is that 30-degree view in front of you. Whereas when you're walking, you can take your time. You can look at everything. There's no danger of having an accident when you walk. It's a much better, slower way to see things. You see everything along the way. When you ride a bike or in a car or in a bus, you travel 200, 300, 400 kilometers in a day. But when you walk, we travel about 20 kilometers in a day. And we see every little nook, cranny, historical site, and we have time to stop for coffee and eat in cool restaurants. And we see a lot more of the country by walking than we do by riding, or riding in a car or a bus. Now, the other half of the why question that we haven't talked about yet is, why did people start walking the Camino in the first place? Well, the Reader's Digest answer to that is, in the 9th century, a farmer found some bones that he believed to be the Apostle of St. James. So he took those bones to Santiago, and they put those bones in a crypt, and the crypt is in the cathedral. It's in the middle of Santiago. So that's why everybody goes to Santiago in their pilgrimage, to pay their respects to the patron St. James, that is supposedly buried in the crypt in the cathedral in the middle of the square. That's why people walk there. Now, when people decided to make the pilgrimage to Santiago to pay their respects to the patron St. James, most of that was done by choice. And they would walk from wherever they were in Europe or Spain or England and get to Santiago and pay their respects and then turn around and walk home. Other times, people were sent there to atone for their sins. If they did something wrong in their village or wherever they lived, the priest would say, well, now you have to walk to Santiago to ask for forgiveness for your sins from the Apostle St. James. There was one other reason that people walked it, and that was that every year one person would be let out of jail, but in order to gain his freedom, he would have to walk from wherever he was let out of jail to Santiago carrying a heavy pack, accompanied by one of the guards. And when he got there and successfully completed that journey, then he would be allowed to go free. So there were some other reasons that people were walking the Camino other than just to pay respects to St. James. Okay, let's go on and see what kind of stuff that I need to bring on this trip. So in order to complete this journey, I'm going to have to take a certain amount of stuff, but I can't take too much. So what I've decided to take on this journey is going to be 4 shirts, 2 pair of zip-off pants, 4 pair of underwear, 4 pair of socks, my toiletry kit that's going to house all my drugs and toothpaste and everything I need for that, and then a box of electronics. So one of the electronics that we're going to need over there is an adapter, because they have a different outlets than we have here, and they're 240 rather than 120. So we need an adapter and a conversion box here to give us the right amount of power for all of our devices. I'm taking my GoPro, which has a battery charger. I'm taking a phone, and Suzanne's got a couple of electronic devices that she needs to be charged as well. I'm also taking the all-important selfie stick. All of this stuff here is going to be put into this pack here. Now, this is a full-on expedition pack. One of the reasons I like it, and I'm taking this pack, is because of the wide and well-supported hip belt here. Now, most of my weight is going to be carried on my hips. Only about 10% of the weight is going to be on the shoulder straps here. All these shoulder straps really do is keep the pack from flopping around. Most of the weight is going to be carried on my hips. One of the drawbacks is, though, the pack itself weighs 6 pounds. But as long as I'm carrying that on my hips, I have no issue with that. Okay, now I have saved the most important for last. Now, one of the most important pieces of equipment that you're going to take in this trip are the shoes that you're going to walk in. The first time I did the Camino Francis, which was 800 kilometers, I thought that I would need a full-on hiking boot such as this here. But after doing the 800 kilometers, I realized that these were not the right boot. one of the drawbacks is that there's absolutely no cushioning in the in the soles whatsoever. When you're walking on hard pavement, all that energy is being transferred right up into your legs, which gets tiring after a while. The other drawback was the high top, like that, where the laces came right up to here. And that put a lot of pressure on the lower part of my leg up through my shin, which may have been the cause of the shin splints. Some people believe that that was the cause of the shin splints that I was having. I am not going to take these boots. And the other thing about these is that these shoes here, both these shoes weigh about the same as one of these boots. So I'll be cutting my weight in half. The other most important part that you wouldn't get used to is that these shoes here have cushioning. It's like walking on air. So that will be less tiring throughout the day when I'm walking on the hard surfaces such as pavement. The only drawback being a low cut runner, I'll get more stuff coming in the top and I'll have to stop more often to clean out my shoes, which is okay because it's just another excuse to take a break. And so the other pair of shoes that I'm taking are my flip-flops. Now these flip-flops will not be used while I'm walking on the trail, but more after hours, once we're finished walking, I'll be happy to get my feet out of these and into these and finish off the day walking around the city wearing my flip-flops or going out for dinner or what have you. Now, let's talk a little bit about the shoes. Whatever shoes you decide to take, you need to do at least one training run that equals the average of what you think you're going to do in the day, so that you know that your feet are going to fit those shoes throughout the entire length of every day. One of the things that happens when you're walking is your feet actually swell up and they become about one size bigger than they normally are. So if you've got a size 9 foot and that shoe fits perfectly in the store, it's probably going to be a little bit too short or too tight after you've walked 22 or 24 kilometers, because your feet are going to grow. And if your feet start to touch the end of your boot in any way, you are not going to be a happy camper. So do at least one training run to make sure that those shoes don't hurt your feet. If you've got shoes that hurt your feet, you are not going to be a happy camper.